Welcome to class 10 children. Today we'll be starting with the first lesson of your biology. This is chapter 6 in your NCERT books, life process. So life process are defined as the sum total of process that help an organism, that enable an organism to survive. Now, since younger classes, you've been studying these characteristics of life when you study the differences between living and non-living things. So we'll just do a quick revision of all these life processes or the characteristic of life. G, growth and development, reproduction, excitability, excretion, nutrition, homeostasis, organization, movement and evolution. Now can you see the acronym that I have tried to make up? So green home will ensure that you remember all the characteristics of life without missing any one of them. In the forthcoming session, we'll be doing all these characteristics one by one. But right now, I'd like to explain one, that is H, homeostasis. Homeo means same or uniform and stasis means conditions. So homeostasis means the maintenance of uniform condition. Now you know how at what temperature your body is maintained, that is 37 degrees Celsius. Any fluctuation from this 37 degrees Celsius is considered to be an indicator of abnormality. If plus minus 1 is okay, so between 37, 36, 37 and 38 is okay, but if the temperature goes beyond 38 or it falls down below 36 degrees Celsius, that indicates that the body's physiology is not performing normally and we need to take some measures, some medications to bring it back to 37 degrees Celsius. So this is known as maintenance of thermal stability. Similarly, our body is supposed to maintain a specific pH, a specific osmotic concentration, so that all the processes that are occurring inside the body can perform at optimum level. So that is homeostasis, maintenance of uniform or optimum conditions within a living organism. So we'll be doing an important topic, that is movement. Movement is one thing which you have been again aware of ever since you've been studying about life and living organism. When we compare plants and animals, we always say that plants do not move, whereas animals are capable of movement. I'll stress here that the correct word that we should be using is locomotion and not movement. To go ahead, we'll first understand the difference between locomotion and movement. Locomotion means moving physically from one place to another. That is when an organism changes its location after covering a certain distance. Movement, on the other hand, can be performed while the organism stays at its own place. For example, when I am teaching in class, my hands are moving. That is a type of movement that I am performing, even though I am not shifting from one place to another. So locomotion is when you change your location. Movement is when you are at the same place and still some part of your body is moving. Movement includes both locomotion as well as staying at one place and moving some part of your body. So movement is a broader term that includes locomotion as well as the movements performed without changing location. Now there's a certain example that I would like to give. Think of a situation where while you are walking on a street and you come across a small bird that is lying on the ground. You have to check why the bird is lying down. Is it alive or is it dead? What would you do? You would touch the bird if you are not very scared like me, or you would see some sign of some movement. If the bird is moving, flipping its wings or moving its arms, or its heart is beating, which will be visible by the up and down movement of its chest, you'll get to know that it is still alive and you can take some measures to bring it back to a healthy state. So movement is an indicator of life. Now these movements can be growth related or not growth related, and we'll be doing these later on. But No matter what, if there is movement, there is life. Sometimes there is no visible sign of movement. You cannot see a movement. For example, if you're sleeping in a deep sleep, there might not be any sign of movement as such. But even then, your body is undergoing lot many movements. There are lot many movements occurring at the tissue level, at the cellular level. These very small scale movement, which can even be molecular level movements, are the ones which are the defining criteria of life. One of the example is cytoplasmic streaming. We'll see later on that inside the cell, the cytoplasm keeps on moving in a round manner like a whirlwind. So like a cyclone or a whirlwind. These cytoplasmic streaming movements are important for keeping a cell alive, for helping a cell perform the basic functions that keep it alive. So these molecular movements are known as the defining criteria of life, so much so that virus, which is non-living one till the time it is outside its host cell, does not shows any molecular movement, but once it is inside the host cell, it starts showing these molecular movement. These molecular movements will be in form of protein synthesis, replication of DNA, formation of RNA, so many different synthetic or destructive process will start occurring once the virus is inside the host cell. So only when these movements start to occur inside the host cell, we consider virus as living. Otherwise, we consider it as non-living. This is the cellular structure in which cytoplasmic streaming occurs as the cytoplasm moves in this circular fashion in the cell. Now, life process, again a repeat of the definition. These are the maintenance process in the living organism. They are essential for life and they are performed even when the body seems to be doing nothing. For example, when you are in deep sleep, and these movements require energy. Some of the common life processes are nutrition, you know the meaning, respiration, transportation, and excretion. If you have any doubt about any of these life processes, you can pause the video and go through the definitions or the short introduction of this life process. Now, there is one very important difference in unicellular and multicellular organisms with respect to how these life processes are performed. Unicellular organisms are very small, so small that their entire surface area is exposed to the environment. So diffusion in itself is sufficient to provide for the exchange of material between the cell and the environment. But in multicellular organism, not all the cells are exposed to the environment, so diffusion cannot suffice the needs of the organism. Moreover, multicellular organisms have a complex structure. Their size is large, their needs are more, so the diffusion as a process is not sufficient to provide sufficient amount of material for the growth and development of multicellular organism. Unicellular organisms are very simple. Their growth or development process require lesser amount of energy, lesser amount of resources, and therefore diffusion is sufficient to provide that much amount of resources. You recall diffusion is a passive means of transport and it is a very slow process. With this, we come to the end of the introduction of life process. In the forthcoming video, we'll be covering nutrition and other life process separately for both plants and animals. Thank you and good luck.